All right, what is happening, you blubbering Bulu? Coming at you with my first take on ArcTIna. And I'm actually really loving the idea of ArcTIna in the Temple Forces post-rotation format. Of course, I haven't played any games with it yet, and I haven't really been a huge fan of ArcTIna for a little while, for a couple formats. But yeah, just like thinking about the deck, thinking about what it's capable of, even though it does lose Path to the Peak, the way the meta is looking, I really, really like the idea of the deck. Before we jump into it and I break down where my build is currently at, gotta give a huge shout out to TCG Bulk for being a sponsor of the YouTube channel, and I want to tell you about the great service that they provide that y'all should be taking advantage of. They connect people who are looking to buy bulk TCG cards with people who are trying to get rid of their bulk TCG cards. So head over to TCG Bulk right now or download their app directly on the Apple App Store or Google Play Store and get started on getting rid of those bulk cards that I know y'all have on your desk literally right now in piles, gathering dust, and turn them into some cash. TCGBulk.com. Of course, there'll be a link down in the description. Check them out over there. So let's get right into it. Of course, we have an Arceus line. I'm really heavy on Pokemon with this build. Not playing Path to the Peak has definitely freed up some space in the deck. And instead of playing like Great Balls or Capturing Aromas, I've just opted for more Pokemon. So I've got 4 Arceus V-Star and 4 Arceus V. Now the Tina line is still coming up to the similar 2-2 count, 2 Giratina V-Star and 2 Giratina V. But the B-Barrel line is coming in thick with a 3-3 B-Barrel. Of course, we're always trying to set up at least one B-Barrel super aggressively, but most games we ideally do want to set up both B-Barrels, and playing 3-3 of them makes it that much easier. So I am maxing out on my Nest Balls and Ultra Balls, of course, but I didn't really love the idea of playing Capturing Aromas or Great Balls. So I was like, why don't we just play more of the Pokemon that we know we want? We want Arceus V, we want Arceus V-Star. Of course, we're always playing 3 Arceus V, but I've gone up to the 4 Arceus V-Star. We want Bidoof, we want B-Barrel, 3-3. And then for the other Pokemon I have in here, we do have that new Iron Leaves EX. It does 180 damage for Grass, and Colors, which is just enough damage to one-hit KO a Charizard EX. And then its ability, when you play it from your hand onto your bench, you can move it into your active from the bench spot, and then it can move any energy from any of your Pokemon anywhere on the field to it, and then, you know, you swing for 180 damage, you KO a Charizard. I don't really know if it's going to be very good in any other matchup, but Charizard's really popular, so you definitely want to play this. If you play Grass Energy, we play Grass Energy, so we play it. The Skull Vet combos, of course, super well with your B-Barrels to shuffle your hand to the bottom of the deck, draw 1 card, and then B-Barrel draws on top of that. You got to play the Skull if you're playing the B-Barrel. And the new inclusion, a Radiant Pokemon, which we haven't seen in ArcTIna for a little while, but now that we don't play Path to the Peak, and now that Path to the Peak in general is not in the meta, the Radiant Gardevoir actually becomes pretty good when we go up against other Giratina decks. It reduces the damage our Pokemon take from our opponent's V Pokemon by 20, which means opposing Giratina's Lost Impacts can't KO our Giratina V-Stars, which puts us ahead in the prize trade potentially. So it's a pretty good card. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of the Radiant Gardevoir in here right now for the other Giratina decks. There's ArcTIna, there's Lost Tina, and Radiant Gardevoir solves the problem against both of those. For the support account, super simple, super straightforward. Actually, there's a little bit of a surprise in here, I guess. 4 Iona, wouldn't go anywhere without them in this deck. Main draw supporter, one of our main disruption supporters as well. It does it all. 3 Judge, definitely wouldn't mind going up to a 4th of these. Another very powerful draw supporter, disruption supporter in this deck. Once we got our B-Barrel set up, we don't mind going down to 4 cards for our draw supporter because, yeah, the effect it has on our opponent to disrupt them is so much more powerful. 3 Boss's Orders. Now, I do play 4 Gust effects in here, and if I don't like the counter catcher, I would go back up to 4 Boss's Orders, but only 3 Boss's Orders because I do have a counter catcher in here. And then the new supporter, the Eerie, a super disruptive. Now, ArcTIna in general is a pretty disruptive deck. 3 Judge, 4 Iono. It used to play Path to the Peak, but now it gained this new card in Eerie, which is a very disruptive card up against quite a few matchups. Up against Charizard decks, taking away their rare candies, and Ultra Ball can be a really, really powerful play. Eerie looks at your opponent's hand and discards 2 item cards you find there. So against Charizard, getting rid of rare candies and Ultra Balls is super good. Up against something like a Chi and Pao, getting rid of superior energy retrievals and Super Rods is really powerful. Up against Lost Zone decks, getting rid of Super Rods and Mirage Gates and Nest Balls, and literally name a card, is really, really powerful up against those Lost Zone decks. Yeah, the Eerie, I think, is like a really powerful inclusion in the deck, because once we establish our B-Barrel, once we get our first, you know, Trinity Nova off, we don't really need to play a draw supporter for turn. And if we don't think a Judge or an Iono is going to be the most disruptive play on the turn, then going for an Eerie instead could be even more disruptive and setting our opponent back and stopping them from being able to do kind of what they want to do on their turn. So yeah, I really love the idea of the Eerie's in here. Currently have 2 of them because, I mean, we don't have any way to find our supporters, so I like the heavier count so we can find it more easily. Like I said, we got 4 of the Nest Balls for our Pokemon search alongside 4 Ultra Balls. And I do have a 1 of Counter Catcher in here, which I like the idea of because it allows us to be aggressive with our first Trinity Nova. We can Starbirth for Counter Catcher, Gust up one of our opponent's bench Pokemon instead of hitting their active. And I like the idea of this up against maybe Charizard to KO like the Rotom, because we do play a Choice Belt in here, or Luminion against Charizard, or we could use this to go KO like an Archeops up against a Lugia deck. Don't really want to punch into the Lugia when we can one-hit KO it later with Giratina. That's another reason actually the Radiant Gardevoir is really nice actually, because it stops Lugia V-Star from one-hit KOing our V Pokemon, the Arceus or the Tina. If they go first and get a turn to Lugia attacking with 4 non-double turbo energy, they could KO our Arceus V or our Giratina, and the Radiant Gardevoir prevents that. So yeah, I like this Counter Catcher in here. Lugia matchup is in mind for that, but also just being able to aggressively Starbirth for it as a response to our opponent getting the first knockout. Seems pretty cool. So one Counter Catcher in here for now. Like I said, might just become a 4th boss though. One Lost Vacuum in here. There's not that many stadium cards in the format. We don't really need to bump something like Path to the Peak, but tool cards are pretty good. There's like the Hero's Cape, which can be pretty good to remove. So yeah, currently 1 Vacuum. Also, there are some stadiums that can be annoying, like Temple of Sinnoh, or removing our opponent's like Pokestop before we hit him with an Iona or a Judge could be pretty powerful as well up against like Chien-Pao. So currently just 1 stadium removal card, and I like the idea of this a little bit better than actually playing a stadium ourselves, because we can use it to remove cards from our hand, which then allows us to draw more cards with our B-Barrel. So I like the Vacuum over like playing our own stadium, but I could see like including like Pokemon League HQs or something for like matchups against basic Pokemon or something like that. 1 switch in here. I do have a Jet Energy in here as well, so we got a couple switch cards. We need that to get into our Arceus, of course. The Choice Belt in here is great when we go up against other Giratina decks that might play V-Guard Energy, or if we go up against a Lugia deck with a V-Guard Energy as well. Gotta have the Choice Belt in there for that. And then we have the Maximum Belt in here as well. So we do have the Virizion or the Iron Leaves in here for the Charizard matchup, but I think we also need the Maximum Belt. I think we need a way to KO 2 Charizards, and I don't know if playing 2 Virizion would be better, but I do think I like the idea of the Maximum Belt for that. It also allows us to be aggressive up against Chien-Pao, whereas if we go first and they have a Chien-Pao and they're active, we can turn 2 Arceus KO Chien-Pao, which is pretty good. The Maximum Belt is pretty good for that. So yeah, I like the Maximum Belt right now, but I don't hate the idea of like a Prime Catcher or something like that. Instead, probably not a Hero's Cape, because we already have like the Radiant Gardevoir that does most of the work that a Hero's Cape would do. So I don't know if I love the idea of a Hero's Cape. For the energy, what do we got here? We got 5 basic grass energy. I like the heavier basic grass count now because we do have the Iron Leaves in there. That does eat up quite a few of our grass energy. So I'm going with 5 basic grass for right now, and then only 3 basic Psychics, because we usually set up 1, maybe 2 Tinas, and 3 basic Psychics should be enough to get us there the majority of the time. Of course, we have 4 double turbos that synergize with our Arceus, and then at the end of it all, I got that 1 Jet Energy I mentioned, and maybe a little bit of a preemptive tech card here that might not be worth playing, I don't know, is the Mist Energy. So the Mist Energy can do a couple things in a couple matchups, namely up against Lost Tina. If we get our Radiant Gardevoir in play to prevent Lost Impact from KOing our Tina, we can also put a Mist Energy on our Tina, and then that prevents our opponent from being able to use Star Requiem to KO that Tina as well. So they can't Lost Impact KO it because of the Gardevoir, and then they can't Star Requiem it because of the Mist Energy. Now they do probably play Temple of Sinnoh, but it is like 1 more piece that they have to find to be able to get through our Mist Energy, and for hitting with Judges and Ionos, they might struggle to get there. What was the other reason I liked the Mist Energy? There was another reason I liked Mist Energy, but I actually just can't think of it anymore off the top of my head. But there was another reason I really liked including Mist Energy in this deck. You can put it on your B-Barrel to protect against Sableye, chasing that against Lost Zone decks as well. Oh, Roaring Moon. It's also good against Roaring Moon. Lost Box decks that play Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon itself doesn't seem like it's going to be a very good deck post-rotation. Now we might just need Ross Cawthon to come out with the new best list to play the deck, but a lot of Lost Box decks are playing Roaring Moon, and this stops the Roaring Moon. I haven't seen a ton of Lost Box lists with Roaring Moon and Temple of Sinnoh, so I don't know if that's going to exist, but if it does, I mean, hit them with a Judge, hope they don't have it. But yeah, Mist Energy is pretty cool as well. Like I said, not like a guaranteed thing I'm going to keep in here, but I like the idea of it, so it's in there for right now. And that's it. First take on ArcTIna. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Did I miss out on any major cards you think that should be included? And let me know what deck you want to see me do next for one of these first take videos for the Temple Forces rotation format, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.